Passive Income Podcast. I'm your host, Dividend Dave. Please be sure to join the Passive Income Posse by clicking that subscribe button below. Super excited for today's episode. I believe we are up to episode number 84 already. Wow, so many guests, so many amazing people, and another amazing person joining me today, Lindsey. Please go ahead and give yourself an introduction.
Good morning, Dave. So my name is Lindsey, and I live on Vancouver Island. I started investing about 5 years ago, but I would say it was more so gambling because I was in gold exploration penny stocks.
Right.
That was due to my grandpa. He's a gold bug. So that's where I started at. But as time progressed, I started learning about dividends and specifically oil and gas. So most of my investments are in oil and gas right now. It's been quite a fun time the last year and a half or so. And there's just lots of opportunities in the sector as well as for Canada. So it's been really great.
Yeah. First, Vancouver Island, British Columbia, beautiful British Columbia. It's definitely my favorite place on the planet. I've spent a lot of time more in the Lower Mainland. I've been to the island several times, but yeah, I definitely know the Lower Mainland and the interior more so than the island. But
Oh, cool.
wow, beautiful British Columbia.
Yes, but we're trying to keep it secret, so it's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
as amazing as we make it sound. Yeah, it's wonderful, and I decided to film this outside, so we'll see what happens with the neighbors.
Right.
It's about 8 a.m. right now, so we'll see if anyone starts doing yard work, which is totally something that can happen
It's
around
possible.
here. Yeah, but it's really nice. I just like to spend as much time as I can outside. In my spare time, I like to do some hiking and just enjoy just the beautiful area.
Yeah,
So
and BC, like you can do so many different things, so many outdoor activities just right there at your fingertips.
yes, it's great. After this, I'm probably going to be heading to a farmer's market.
Nice.
Yeah, but
So-
oh yes,
I was just going to circle back around to, you said in the beginning, gold penny stocks and gambling.
yes.
And that's interesting because I think we've probably all been there, maybe not necessarily with gold, but in the beginning, you see these penny stocks and you just think, oh, well, if it shoots up to X amount of dollars, I can like totally cash in or whatever. And so rarely that happens with a penny stock.
Yeah, so I was a bit younger then. It was about 5 years ago, so I didn't have a lot of money, and I wasn't putting a ton of money into it. But I definitely hit a 10 bagger, so I didn't know at the time that was unusual, but it happened. So I'd say it worked out better than predicted.
Right.
But I don't gamble around that much. I do have one account that is kind of my penny stock account, so that's like less than 10% of my portfolio, and you just never know what can happen with those. But for me, when I put money into those kinds of stocks, I imagine myself throwing the money away because it's not quite investing, it's gambling. So you need to have that mindset for those types of things, and also doing that while having dividend stocks on the side is really helpful in that way because you do have that security and the consistent income coming in as well. So you feel a bit better.
I think that's a great way to put it, is just like, think about it like gambling. Basically think you're just throwing something on the roulette wheel and you generally don't hit on a roulette number. You might hit red or black, but you might not hit the number right on. So I think that's a great way to, or a great analogy, great way to put that.
Yeah. And just balancing your portfolio with your risk appetite as well as allocation to what you want to be in and that. So that's been great. So so my passion is oil and gas, specifically LNG. I'm really excited for the future of LNG in Canada, specifically BC as well, which it's my home. So I was very drawn to the story of it. And so after I discovered oil and gas, that's when I learned about LNG and then the dividend stocks that follow that. So I don't know, would you like me to talk a bit about
please,
the story?
Even just LNG, if I'm not mistaken, you're just referring to liquid natural gas.
Yes. 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 So that's a question I get a lot with this newfound passion and my friends who are outside of Twitter and outside of oil and gas. I talk about LNG and they ask, what's that? Or what company is that? And then I explain it. So basically LNG stands for liquefied natural gas. And how it's going to work in BC is there's an area in northeastern BC called the Montney. There's other areas too, but the Montney is like one of the biggest upcoming uh, geographical plays for that. And what happens there is the companies extract the natural gas and then it's taken through a pipeline, which is being built by TC Energy, probably a pipeline company that a lot of people are aware of. That's a Dividend player. And this pipeline is called Coastal GasLink. So the natural gas is going to travel through that pipeline to the west coast in Kitimat. And there is where it's going to be cooled down. So that's kind of how they turn the natural gas into liquefied natural gas, is they cool it to minus 162 degrees Celsius, if I'm not mistaken. And it creates it into from like this big size to very, very small to like 1/600 of the size in its gas form to its liquid form. And then from there, they will then ship it and send it to Asian markets. And why I just am so excited about it is this natural gas is used to displace coal consumption in those Asian markets. And that's going to decrease like the global emissions and just really help countries and people have like accessible and stable energy sources. Yeah, so that's kind of how it works. What's neat about this pipeline too, so when I look at the stocks I invest in terms of growth as well, so currently in Canada, we produce what's called 18 BCF, so billion cubic feet per meter billion cubic feet. So we produce 18 BCF, billion cubic feet.
Let's just keep
Oh
going.
gosh. Okay.
It's okay. I just want to jump in
Sorry.
there. TC, that's Trans-Canada Pipeline.
TC Energy it's just called TC Energy. It's TRP. Let me drink
Okay.
some more caffeine.
Yeah,
it's early
definitely
for
get
me.
some more caffeine. It is early in the morning for you there on the West Coast.
Okay, so let's rewind for a second.
Yeah.
So yes, so Canada, we produce 18 BCF a day of natural gas. The pipeline is going to be able to transport 2 BCF a day. So when you look at growth in that sense, that's like a significant amount. But this pipeline also is kind of neat from an engineering perspective because it can expand to 5 BCF a day. And that's amazing when you look at it that way. So the engineers who have been involved with this project, they basically use this compression technology and they can without like actually building another pipeline, they can expand the volume that can go through. So that's really cool in that perspective. And then also you can just see growth that's going to happen in Canada and in this sector, which is what I'm waiting for. So natural gas is an extremely volatile market, just like any other commodity. But when you see that there's growth that's going to happen, it gives you a little bit, it makes you sleep easier at night knowing that there is a plan, it's happening. The pipeline is about 90% done now, so that's good. And then the terminal that's going to do the liquefaction process is about 80% done. So we're nearing there. It's happening, it's coming, and it's just super great. So
I do want to ask you too, because anytime there's a pipeline being built through BC, or even a proposal to build a new pipeline through BC usually from Alberta to the ocean, right? Mm-hmm. There's always controversy. There's always, people opposed to it. There's the Indigenous land and Indigenous rights. And honestly, I haven't really kept up with all the stories of this particular pipeline that you're talking about, but it does sound that like they've overcome all of that if they're at 80 and 90% completion of the pipeline and the terminal in Kitimat.
Yeah, so I mean, even after it's done, there's always going to be groups that are opposed to it and try to shut it down. So that's to be expected. A lot of these projects are actually like First Nations partnership, as well as they're still benefiting from it and are supporting it. So there's another terminal that is proposed right now in Kitimat. It's near Kitimat. It's called Cedar LNG, and it's actually 51% First Nations owned by the Haisla First Nation. So that's what's great is like a lot of these projects in LNG, they have proper like economic benefits and reconciliation through this.
Right.
So that's what's really great about that. But then there are other groups that do oppose these things. But what's neat about natural gas that's different than oil is if there's like a pipeline leak for an oil pipe, it will spill. But for natural gas, it just evaporates. So
Right.
there's not as much it's different, but people get that confused. People think like, oh, there's this pipeline. Well, there's lots of pipelines. If you look
Yeah.
at a pipeline map, most of North America are pipelines, but it just depends which ones the media attract in that. So, and I know I'm not as familiar with the TMX, the Trans Mountain Pipeline. That's the government one
Right.
that's heading down to the Lower Mainland. I know that is nearing completion. I don't know exactly where it's at, but we'll see. I think that one will probably get a bit more pushback just because it's going through a higher populated area and density.
Right.
So sometimes a lot of these projects, it depends where they're located to and how many people see it or are impacted by it in that sense. But they're happening. They
Yeah.
started. It's gonna happen. So
Yeah. And like you said, there's pipelines all over North America, and it's my understanding too that transporting, whether it's oil or natural or LNG, liquefied natural gas, is much safer to transport it by pipeline rather than by rail.
yeah, exactly. So rail, there's you're gonna get less. You're gonna need more trains than that to transport it. The pipelines are much more efficient. There's less incidents and less accidents in that sense. So, yeah. So it's also there's like an education piece that a lot of people don't know about, and I didn't know about it. I didn't even know what LNG was until I discovered the oil and gas people on Twitter, and
Yeah.
I didn't even know the projects were happening, and they've been happening for years here. So it's a lot about awareness and stuff as well.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you've dug in and done your own due diligence and have done your own research, because you're quite knowledgeable about it now.
I just enjoy it. It's a hobby of mine now, and there's just so many great things with regards to LNG, and especially Canada. Like I could look at investing in dividend stocks for American companies or for companies that benefit other countries, or I can look at these companies that are like local to Canadian people and employ Canadians and
Right.
have these like indigenous partnerships, right? So I it's about like supporting local and um, just seeing the growth in the country, because there's a lot of stuff going on, and to see something good economically happen in Canada just really makes me happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to agree with that. It's definitely good to see economic growth right here in our own country, and
Yeah.
it's definitely good to know that the indigenous people have partnered and that they're benefiting from these partnerships as well. Because obviously we know we've had a not the greatest history, not just Canada but all of North America. We haven't had the greatest history with the indigenous people here, and so if we can help correct some of that past wrongdoings, then that's a net positive. So
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think just looking at like the Heisler First Nation have done with they have also partnerships with C-SPAN and other companies, and when there's a community who wants these types of projects and want to provide for their people, then that's just really great, and you want to support that as much as you
yeah,
can and be a part of it. So
awesome. A couple other questions. I know from our DMs you were mentioning you have become or are soon becoming a CPA.
mm. Yeah, so I'm writing my final in September. So I'll also be studying this weekend. That's on my list of things to do, and I'm just excited to be done it.
Yeah,
That's what's kind of nice. I don't really have a lot of time to spend outside of studying, and I don't have time to travel to see people or anything. So discovering Twitter and using that kind of as my hobby and a break from studying has been really good, and it also helps. It doesn't quite help me with the actual content, but it just helps keep me focused on
right.
school and learning, and it's like somewhat applicable.
Yeah,
So it's been great.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
awesome. Well, that sounds like you're setting yourself up for a great future. I'm curious, what other sectors do you have in your portfolio?
Just LNG related ones.
Yeah.
I can talk about some of the stocks as well. But sometimes it's difficult. So I'm the type of person it's the whole know what you own situation. So
Right.
I recently got TELUS though. I guess that's the only thing that's not related to it. But
Yeah.
by following the story, following these companies and how they impact each other, it's something that is really helpful in that way. Because if your stocks do go down and you don't know why, or you're not educated on it, then you're at risk of selling or being like scared out of it, right?
Right.
So by knowing what you own and being into this, that's kind of where I focus my attention. I do have some oil companies as well, but I'm also not as educated on that because I wasn't as passionate to learn
Yes.
more. So I know it's very like I just stay in the sector right now, basically. So
Okay.
there's a little bit of copper too, but those are in my penny stock account.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
TELUS, that's an interesting one. Obviously, uh, one of the big telecom players here in Canada, and I don't own them. I've been stocking. I've been trying to stockpile Bell this year. So obviously, Bell and TELUS are direct competitors, but they're both
Yeah.
great companies, great investments, great dividend payers. And so I guess kind of what drew you to TELUS, and it sounds like you're in your safe little bubble of being educated in the oil and gas and sector, and
Yeah.
then just
I guess you could say it was almost peer pressure in some ways, but for TELUS, like I do need to diversify at some point. So
yeah,
I do have I actually use the spreadsheet where to track my dividends. I know that people have dividend apps and stuff like that, but I manually do it on my Excel sheet. So I like to
I'm the
also
same.
play
I
up.
do it manually with
Oh,
Excel
good.
also.
Yeah, so I like to so I like to look at like, okay, what's my current like anticipated like annual dividend income, what's my proposed income depending on which stocks I buy, and then I just look at different like price targets and dividend yields. So I do have a non oil and gas one that I look at, and TELUS was on there.
Right,
So and also the bank stocks, I don't own any bank stocks right now, but they are on my list to look at. So I keep them
right.
on my other spreadsheet, and I just occasionally like just watch the dividend yields and that. For TELUS, I'm currently a TELUS user.
Yeah,
So that kind of helped for that as well. And then also just in general with the telecoms, like there's not too many in Canada. We're growing as a country. I saw the other week we reached 40 million people.
yeah.
So, there's more immigration that's going to be happening here and people getting cell phone plans and that. So that's kind of the growth story behind that.
Yeah, that's understandable and reasonable because yeah, you're pretty much right. 40 million people pretty much
Mhm.
means 40 million cell phones. It's like as soon as a baby is born, they're given a cell phone these days, it seems. So
Yeah, I actually didn't think about that, but you're right. Like, I think I got my first cell phone. It was a flip phone.
yeah,
Um, I think that was in like grade 9 or 10 or something like that. But I guess kids are getting them younger these days, so
yeah,
that does increase the usage for sure. So
yeah. And great point too about you know the Canadian population increasing as well. So like you said, more people coming to the country. That's also just more cell phones and therefore more cell phone plans as well. So
yeah.
I
And more bank accounts for the bank
yeah.
stocks, but I'm gonna wait, and I need my natural gas stocks to make me some money before I look at getting back into the bank stocks.
Yeah, no, the bank stocks are great. I don't own all of them. I own a couple, and I wish I owned more because,
Oh,
yeah, I
okay.
think we know the story on the big six Canadian banks is they're all uh, strong companies, strong dividend payers, and yeah, it would be good to have them all and have a lot of shares of all six of them. So
Yeah, definitely. So, yep. So I'm working on anticipating that probably next year, maybe
yeah,
is my target for that. But I just, like I said, I just am so when you're passionate about something, and it's very difficult to look outside of that.
right,
So, but um, at the same time, to hedge yourself against being in one sector, essentially, you need to look outside of it. I know that, but
Right.
I'm just it's just exciting times.
So how many total individual companies do you own then?
I'd say probably about 15.
So TELUS and then 14. And I'm not talking about your penny stock accounts, just your, so like
Yeah.
14 oil and gas plus
Yeah.
TELUS?
I had a spreadsheet. I should have looked this up, but it's about 15. I do have some smaller, some smaller ones that I am looking at like selling. So I have my keep pile and then my get rid of at some point pile. So there's probably about 5 in my get rid of pile at some point. But yeah, it's about 15, I would say. But there is one stock that is about 20% of my portfolio. It's the biggest natural gas producer in Canada. It's called Tourmaline.
Yes.
And
Oh, yes. We need to talk
you've
about Tourmaline.
you've heard of it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Tourmaline, so they're the largest natural gas producer in Canada. And if you look at it from a dividend perspective, their dividend yield right now is about 1.7%. However, they pay out these things called special dividends.
Yes.
So special dividends usually are only supposed to happen at special times and maybe once a year, but they just keep paying them. And I'm okay with that. If they want to keep paying these special dividends, that's great. So the stock's about $60 right now. And their annual dividend is just over $1, so it's not too high. But
Right.
for special dividends this year, they've paid out, I believe, 3.5% already. Or sorry, they paid out $3.50 in special dividends. So when you look at that over the current price of $60, that's about a 5.8% dividend yield.
Yeah.
So that plus your like 1.7%, that's better than most bank stocks,
Yeah,
right?
you're getting
So
quite a juicy yield there when you add the two together.
yeah. So the special dividends are not guaranteed, even though the CEO, Mike Rose, he says he will be paying out 2 more special dividends this year. So I'll just keep that. But also, like I said, there's significant growth that's going to happen in the company. I think they're expected to increase production about 30% in the next 5 years or so. So I look at it in that sense. Plus, being the largest natural gas producer in Canada, they're going to benefit from different deals in Canada as well as in the States. So one thing that makes them great is what's called like their marketing plan. So marketing in the oil and gas business is basically buying and selling of the commodity. So they've created these deals where, when you're looking at the TV and you see like the price of oil and the price of natural gas, that's only one price of natural gas. So there's actually different hubs that pay different prices for it. So Tourmaline's worked really well at shipping their natural gas on low expense pipelines, so they don't have to pay much in fees, to these hubs that are paying higher prices. So this year they started getting what's called JKM pricing, so Japan Korea marker. So that's the Asian pricing, and I don't know what it is exactly right now, but it's much higher. It fluctuates a lot, but it's
Right.
it's much higher than what is locally, just because of the demand. And there's we lack the capacity to ship. These countries want more of it, and we don't have the export capacity, which is expected to grow. So I already mentioned Canada. In the States, I think it's going to grow about in general between North America. So just in the States right now, I think is 12 BCF a day is they export. And that's going to increase probably about 9 to 11 BCF a day. So it's going to double in the next 5 years or so, depending on the projects that go. But these projects are being built and we're going to benefit from it. So even though we'll be exporting off Canada, these companies are also getting advantages from exporting down in the States as well, which are doing good too. So that's what's great about Tourmaline. And they're also just they actually reached aristocrat dividend status for increasing their dividend. I know the base dividend is only 1.7% right now, but they are a more stable and company than the smaller ones. So
20%. Do you feel that's a too big of a portion of your portfolio, or you're okay with it for now?
I'm okay with it for now. Yeah, um it's all good. I even have my drip on for it, so I'm happy where I'm at. I didn't do the best timing wise, and that's just comes with learning and experience. I think it's very difficult to predict.
It's impossible to time the market. So
The day to days, but I'm happy with it for now. And also, like you said, like I do think like 15 stocks is a lot because I can't watch all of them. I can't follow all of them, even though they are related in sectors. But I just don't have time between studying and working. So I think having that kind of allocation is fine for me, especially when it's like a bigger company that is going to do well in the long term. So
yeah, you're not worried about it. So you don't have to check on the company every single day because you just know that overall they're in good shape.
yeah, and it's good like when you know that they have a good strong management team and record, you can sleep better at night, especially when it's is this volatile of the sector. So
What's the next biggest company in your portfolio? Even just a
um
rough guess.
so I have Synovus and another natural. Synovus is an oil company. They're paying a small dividend. I didn't look it up right now, but it's it's oil. They
Yeah,
have oil sands, so their cost per barrel is a lot cheaper than conventional oil players. So that's kind of like my oil exposure, and then it's about the same as another natural gas company called Arc Resources.
right.
Yeah, so I did want to be in oil because being in all natural gas is a lot, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, so that's kind of the one I went with. But in terms of dividends, I there's also C&Q, which is one you're probably aware of. That
yeah,
one pays, yes, that one pays about a 5% dividend. So if you're like looking for a dividend stock, um, C&Q, Canadian Natural Resources, they're going to be paying higher than Synovus. I've been waiting for Synovus to increase their dividend, and we'll see what happens. They did pay out a special dividend last year, which was really nice at the end of the year. But I know oil pricing has not been as good this year, so we'll
right.
see what happens with that. But it's okay.
Let's dig into Arc Resources a little more. That's a company that I'm not familiar with at all. So
Okay.
I'm getting an education here because honestly, I'm not overly familiar with the oil and gas sector at all. I have limited exposure to them myself.
Yeah.
So I'm really soaking this in and just loving the conversation
Oh, thank you.
because I'm learning here. So
It's great, and it's great. Like, it's just great to have awareness of these Canadian companies and just the growth, right?
right,
So Arc Resources, so they are also a natural gas producer. They are the biggest Montney producer. So I mentioned the Montney before being this prolific area to extract natural gas from. Um, and Arc have been raising their dividend. I think they pay about a 3.78% dividend right now, if I'm not mistaken, at their current price. And what makes them special is Arc is also the biggest condensate producer in Canada. So condensate is when they produce the natural gas, they also have these liquids that come up as well, and one of them is condensate. And what's cool about condensate is it's used in the oil sands to ship it through the pipelines. So when I mentioned how these things are all connected and
right,
it's essentially like the value chain. So currently in Canada, we import most of our condensate in. So we don't have enough here for it. So
right,
in that sense, there's like high demand for it, right? So so when oil goes through pipelines, they measure it in like barrels of oil, and per barrel of oil, I think is about 30%. 30% of it is condensate. So it's a significant amount that
right,
goes through these pipelines and that the oil companies need to ship these to ship their oil. And the purpose of it is it's to change the viscosity of the oil so it makes it more liquid. And depending on the time of the year, if it's in wintertime, then you're going to need more because the pipes are cold. And what's cool about the condensate is it's priced in WTI pricing. So it's priced in the crude, off the crude index. So
that's
if
West
natural
Texas
gas,
Intermediate.
yes, West Texas Intermediate. So what's cool is like if natural gas prices are low, you're still getting good money from this condensate, which is used in the oil production. So it's just another way to I guess you could play the price of oil through the condensate, as well as it gives ARC another revenue stream. So they're able to, if natural gas isn't doing well, they're able to still make money. And that's something that a lot of people don't know about because they think, oh, it's just a natural gas company. The natural gas price is down. But there are other benefits to it. So that's really cool in that sense. And they also are just looking at getting more of these agreements in place to sell their natural gas in the future. So it's really, they're just another great company, and they are like, they for their return to investors. So they're looking at also like increasing the dividend and doing buybacks, and they've been really strategic with their buybacks. So I'm really happy with them, and just another company that I'm excited for. And they're a lot better priced. So if people are looking to get in, Tourmaline is a bit higher. It's the $60 for people, and whereas ARC Resources, I think it's at $18 right now. So it's
much lower entry point.
Yeah, exactly. And it was actually one of the first companies I bought in the oil and gas sector. I didn't know much about it. It was kind of one of those things. Last year, it took a while to learn, but you kind of learn when you get in as well. And it so happened to be one of my first companies I picked. I just watched some people on TV, talked to my grandpa because he still knows things outside of gold, and I went with them. So and it was a good choice, and I'm really excited for their future too. So that's definitely one that I'm gonna look at adding to in the future, and I have my drip on for that as well. So
awesome. And then you also mentioned Canadian Natural Resources. Let's talk about that one a little bit. That one is a much more popular among the Canadian Div Twit crowd. So there's tends to be a little bit more information. I know Tourmaline, a lot of people talk about that one as well, but CNQ is definitely, I guess maybe just in the news more than any of the others. Whether that's good or bad, but they just seem to be a little bit more prevalent, in people's minds, maybe. So
yeah, so CNQ, like historically, like they're known as an oil company. But fun fact, they are the second largest natural gas producer in Canada. So they actually do produce a lot of natural gas. But I think the natural gas is only about 30% of like what they produce. So to them, it's not the biggest part, but to Canada, it is.
Right.
So that's what's cool about them. And also they've just been around for a long time. Like they've increased their dividend over 20 years. It doesn't matter if oil was down or what it was doing, you're going to get a dividend increase every year. So that's pretty cool. And that's something that I didn't know about last year when I was buying some of these companies, and I went with Cenovus instead, because once again, it was like a cheaper entry point for me. And I was just dipping my toes into it. But I do wish that I had got the CNQ instead from the dividend perspective. Right. So CNQ's come down a bit from its highs. So it's definitely on my watch list. It is on my maybe buy dividend spreadsheet. So I'm watching it from that perspective. Also, their CEO is Murray Edwards, and he is just known in the oil and gas community as one of the greatest. So, so it's nice. Like once again, like good management. Like you said, your dividend community, it's talked about a lot. So, there's a lot of support behind it, and funds hold it as well. So it's so it's good in that sense.
I think someone will have to fact check us in the comments, but I think they've been paying a dividend way longer, or having dividend increases annually for a lot longer than just 20 years.
Yeah, I want to say it's like they've increased it 23 years, if I'm not mistaken. That's why I said over 20 years.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly the number, but maybe someone will fact check us in the comments, or I'll look it up after and put it in the description or something. But awesome. And it's quite the portfolio that you're beginning to build. Obviously, you're very heavy into the oil and gas, and then you have that one little spot of Telus, and then you definitely have the banks on your radar. And I can tell this by looking at you're a lot younger than I am, so you have lots of time to get there, to diversify more, to grow your portfolio, grow these dividends. I love that sunshine just coming down on you.
I know it's coming. I'm like trying to like move over here.
You're just like,
I don't know if I can.
A ray of I mean, just like a ray of
We'll see if
sunshine.
that's
Oh, it's
better.
it's all
It's a
good. It's
little
all
bit better.
good. It's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of like time and being in the market and stuff. So one thing that I've started building my dividend account in my RSP. So right now I'm only investing in an RSP and in a TFSA, and I do have like a first time home savings account also started. So with these different vehicles, like even though right now they're all tax free, eventually at some point I'll be investing outside of, like, I'll be investing in taxable accounts too.
Right.
And I didn't really plan that well ahead. So most of my dividend stocks are in my RSP, which is fine. It's great. But I'm not going to benefit from those dividends immediately.
Right.
And I'm going to have to pay taxes on those dividends when I go to withdraw it. So that's one thing that I wish I was a bit more mindful of. Of course, you can buy and sell in your accounts and switch it around, which is totally fine. And maybe one day I will do that. But I do wish that I built my dividend portfolio in a TFSA.
Yes.
And the benefit of that is you're going to be getting this regular dividend income that you can withdraw and use. And it's like your paychecks, you can use it, it's tax free, you can use it now, you can use it when you're retired, and it's just there for you. So that's definitely something that I wish I knew about sooner. But at the same time, I'll be holding my RSP longer because I will be looking to purchase a house at some point. So I'm gonna have to sell some of my TFSA stocks. So even though I feel like I made a mistake, I think I'm still good. But it's just something to keep in mind. And then with this first time home savings account, instead of contributing to my RSP, I'm going to be contributing to that. So you get the tax benefits. You can take it out for your home right away. You don't have to worry about having like limits and stuff like that, because I don't plan to use my RSP for I know you can take some money out of your RSP to use for a house, but I'm going to leave it in there if I don't need to. I'm not going to, because also, I mean, right now interest rates, I guess you'd be saving more on interest rates if you took it out, depending on your dividend income. But in the past, you can make more money by keeping that money in your dividend stocks than using it towards a mortgage. But I also care about my retirement and stuff. So I want to try and leave that in there if I can, and just utilize my TFSA and my first time home savings account. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's an uphill battle. It's going to be an uphill battle for you buying real estate in British Columbia.
Yeah. It's
expensive.
We'll see what happens after my CPA. There's many different options out there, and see how it goes. But I've been working hard to save. I found being interested in like investing in stocks, I'm not spending as much on fun things. I'm thinking in my head, oh, I want to buy more TELUS. Like, I need to save more. So it's really helped me increase my savings in that perspective as well. Just having the motivation and the I'm not going to call it an addiction to investing, but I look at that. I look at that proposed dividend, like annual dividend income, and I'm like, oh, I want to increase my dividend income, my annual income, so.
It does become quite the different mindset when you start thinking, like you said, I want to buy that one more share of TELUS or whatever company, as opposed to, oh, I want to buy Starbucks or a new pair of shoes or anything, right? You're just thinking, well, I could go and have nice breakfast out or brunch, but that's gonna, at a decent restaurant, a brunch is gonna cost you 30, 40, $50, and you're like, oh, that's almost 2 shares of TELUS, right?
Exactly. I definitely started pricing things in shares of companies and stuff. Not as much now, but definitely a lot last year. But I do think about that. And also, speaking of like treating yourself, so when Tourmaline pays out its dividends, I have this tradition where I go get a croissant. There's a specialty croissant place, and they're about $12 a croissant here. But after just the whole sometimes you got to treat yourself, and it's just a nice like habit and like positive thing to do. So so that's one thing that I do, which is good. So having that, keeping that motivation and that like little like check mark, like yay, got that, and celebrate kind of thing. So that's one thing that I've created as a
That's a great point. You do also have to, live your life and have some joys in life, and you can't just be Ebenezer Scrooge and stash it all away. You actually do have to sometimes go out and enjoy life as well.
Yeah, so that's good, and just keep on saving, investing. And speaking of drip, so I do use the drip for most things, but there are some stocks that are currently dripping that are on my to sell list. So I'm actually going to be taking my portfolio drip off. So that's one thing. Sometimes that you can be like very strategic with your drips, and depending on which stocks or if you're in different sectors, to which ones do you want to grow, which ones do you not want to grow. So that's another thing to be mindful of for sure.
Yeah, incredible conversation. We're gonna wrap up soon, but before we sign off, do you have any last thoughts or any last words?
Just thank you to everyone who's taught me everything in the last year and a half, or maybe almost 2 years. I think it's just been really great community online. Twitter is amazing to connect with people. Also, speaking of which, Dave, I like watch your videos. You connect with so many people outside of Canada, and it's so cool to like hear about like what other people are doing and the different things out there. So that's been really great. And it's just a wonderful community, especially with the oil and gas and the future of LNG. I'm just super excited for it, and just increasing Canada's greatness. We have this great country. It's beautiful, and there's great things that we can do together. So that's
that's amazing. And thank you. Well, thank you for watching the episodes. And I think it's probably pretty close between Americans and Canadians who have been on, but also like I've had several people from the UK and Europe as well, which is just an amazing, completely different perspective as well. So, it's been a blast for me, having all of these incredible conversations with all these amazing people. And then you mentioned like what you've learned in the last year and a half or 2 years from other people on Twitter. In closing, what is something that you would say to someone else? Like not financial advice, but what would you say to someone like either just starting out or what would you say to them?
I think something my grandpa told me, invest in what you know and what you like, because if you're reading about something that you don't enjoy, or you're invested in something that you don't want to read about every day, then you're probably not going to learn as much as you should learn. So if you find something that you're passionate about and you want to become an expert in that industry, then go for it. There's opportunities all over in many different sectors. I gravitated towards LNG and how Canada can benefit and help the world with it, and that's what I'm sticking to. So I'll invest in other stuff at some point, but I know I won't enjoy reading about other stuff and learning about other stuff as much as I do LNG. So just find what you love, and just have fun and love life, and it's not always going to be it's not always going to be great. Right now is not great for my stocks, but I'm still happy because I have conviction. I see the future, and just very exciting.
Yeah, I think those are some incredible words of wisdom. The love life part, I love that. But invest in what you know, invest in what you're passionate about. And with that said, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Passive Income Podcast. Everyone be sure to follow Lindsey on Twitter. It's at Nadine Lindsey _ I believe is your Twitter handle.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, Dave. And it was wonderful chatting with you today. Thank you for listening to me talk about LNG. Wonderful day to start this beautiful Saturday. I don't know if you can hear the birds. I hope you guys can, but I
can definitely hear them. It's
they're talking.
been an amazing addition to the Passive Income Podcast. The birds chirping in the background, your beautiful backyard. Love it.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Well, you have a great weekend, and thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you're still here 45 minutes later, please subscribe.